The concept of time, I suppose, is largely a philosophical question. In terms of physics, time is necessary in order to describe how things change. But that's not necessarily, I suppose, how we experience time. The idea that we experience a certain moment of time as the present, and that moment continually goes forward, seems to be, to some extent, a construct of our own. Before special relativity, time was thought to be an absolute concept, and it didn't matter where you were in the universe, one moment followed another in exactly the same way for everybody. But in 1905, Einstein showed that wasn't true. The rate of passing of time is different for everybody, depending on their relative motion. If you were to fly off in a spaceship and go around Alpha Centauri at close to the speed of light and come back, then your clock would have ticked substantially slower than mine. So you would come back to find me a much older person than yourself. But you could imagine what might happen to a future civilization who was perhaps able to construct spacecraft that could travel at close to the speed of light. Interstellar travel for that kind of advanced civilization would become much, much easier, not just because it would reduce the amount of time it took to get there, but because their clocks would tick slower as they travelled to that distant star. If you imagine a star 1,000 light years away, then if you could travel at close to the speed of light, that doesn't mean it'd still take you 1,000 years to get there. If you're on the spaceship, because your clock would tick slower relative to somebody on the planet that you had just left, you could actually get to that distant star in just a matter of seconds. If light only travelled at 30 miles per hour, and if I could run or cycle at close to that speed, by accelerating and increasing my velocity, the rate of everybody around me's aging would slow down. And not just their aging, it would be everything around me would slow down. So if a leaf fell from a tree and I was travelling very fast or close to the speed of light, then I would see that leaf dropping much more slowly. Normally, the future is distinct from the past, but if you have objects rotating very quickly, or if the universe itself were to rotate, for example, then the future and the past can become mixed together. They're no longer distinct objects. You could send out a radio signal, and you could, in fact, end up in your own past. You could imagine situations where, because time is relative, you could do things that you couldn't otherwise. For example, if you wanted to develop the cure for a disease, and you had a patient who needed that cure very quickly, you could, for example, send that patient close to a black hole, and then when the cure is ready, you could pull them back from the black hole. And because their clock would slow down as they get closer and closer, you'd have arbitrarily large amounts of time in order to invent your cure. So if you were eating a burger as you fell into a black hole, if I were watching you eating that burger from far away as you fell into the black hole, I would see you slowing down. So your every bite would take more and more time. I would see you eating that burger for a longer time, but for you, as you fell into the black hole, your personal understanding of time doesn't slow down at all. So although I see it taking longer, from my perspective, from your perspective, it would take exactly the same amount of time. So you can't prolong your enjoyment, unfortunately, by falling into a black hole. It can be a little bit unsettling to begin with, to learn that time is a relative concept. So it's one of the things you take for granted, I suppose. Like you take for granted that the floor is solid until you have an earthquake. I think lots of people, when they first hear that time is relative, have a kind of an instinctive objection, it seems, sometimes. I suppose it's because you're taking away kind of a crutch that people have used to understand their own lives and the universe that they live in. But in reality, being able to interpret time in the way that Einstein did, to understand time as part of the universe, and not just part of the universe, something that's responsible for gravity, it lets you understand the universe in a whole new way. It lets you understand your part in the universe in a new way as well.